You've been trying, haven't you? Meditating, visualizing, saying your affirmations every morning, journaling about your dream life, lighting candles under full moons, watching every self-help video that tells you, just feel good and it will come. But still, nothing changes. Or if it does, it slips through your fingers like vapor. It's frustrating, it's confusing, and honestly, it makes you question everything. Am I broken? Am I doing something wrong? Is all this talk about manifestation just spiritual fluff? Let me tell you this. You're not broken. You're not lazy. And you're definitely not alone. Millions of people are stuck in the exact same loop. They want to believe in change. They feel the pull of something greater. But despite all their effort, the needle doesn't move. And that's not because they're not trying hard enough. It's because they're trapped behind something they can't see. An invisible wall made of old identity, outdated frequency, and unconscious timelines. You've probably felt this wall before. It's that sinking feeling when you wake up hopeful, only to feel the same anxiety by midday. It's that tug in your chest when you try to believe you're abundant, but your body flinches at every unexpected bill. It's when you walk into a room, set on showing up as your higher self, but find yourself shrinking to the version of you that fits the environment, the people, the past. The wall is real, but not in the way you think. It's not out there. It's not your job, not your partner, not your bank account. It's the frequency you're still unconsciously living in. Let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with this. Are you trying to build a new life while still holding on to the energy of the old one? Because that's where 99% of people stay stuck. They try to manifest love from a place of abandonment. They try to create wealth from a place of scarcity. They try to become free while still identifying as the wounded version of themselves. And no matter how hard they try, how many vision boards they create, or rituals they perform, their external reality doesn't shift because their internal frequency hasn't jumped. It's not your fault. Nobody taught you how to collapse an identity. Nobody told you that manifestation is not about thinking positive. It's about shifting timelines. And a timeline isn't just a metaphor. In quantum physics, every choice you make collapses a wave of infinite possibilities into one observable outcome. The life you're living now is not the life. It's one version out of billions. But to jump to another, you don't need more effort. You need a shift in who you're being. Here's the harsh truth. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. And right now, no matter what you're trying to do, your frequency is likely still coded in an old story. A story built on fear, lack, trauma, and survival. And that story broadcasts itself louder than your intentions. You might be saying, "I am abundant," but if your nervous system is still bracing for disaster, you're not coherent. You might be saying, "I am ready for love," but if your cells are still wired for betrayal and rejection, you're not sending out a clear signal. And quantum reality doesn't respond to words. It responds to coherence. That's the invisible wall. It's not about what you know. It's about what you vibrate. And until your inner frequency aligns with the reality you're trying to enter, it will remain out of reach. Not because it's far, but because you haven't jumped yet. Now, here's where things get powerful. The jump doesn't take months. It doesn't take years of therapy or a 100-step plan. A quantum jump happens in an instant, the moment you choose to become the version of yourself who already lives in that new reality. Not just think like them, not just act like them. Be them, feel them, walk like them, speak like them, decide like them. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. The field begins to reorganize itself around your new vibration. You start to notice shifts. People treat you differently. Opportunities open, synchronicities align, and most importantly, you stop trying to get there because you've become the one who already is. You're probably wondering, okay, but how do I do that? How do I collapse an identity? How do I stop being the version of me that keeps recreating the same loop? Great question. That's exactly what we're diving into next. Because now that you understand why the old methods keep failing, it's time to discover the deeper reason behind your stuckness and the scientific and psychological mechanisms that keep you frozen in time. In the next part, we'll break down the core mistake nearly everyone makes when trying to change their life, why mindset alone won't save you, and how even your best efforts can actually reinforce the old timeline. You'll see clearly, maybe for the first time, that your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors aren't the root your identity is. And only when you learn to collapse the old version of yourself can you finally step into the new timeline that's already waiting for you. If effort alone could change your life, you'd be living in a completely different reality by now. Let's be honest. You've put in the work. You've followed the steps. You've pushed yourself through discomfort. And yet, it still feels like you're paddling against a current that never lets up. That's not laziness. That's not a lack of clarity. That's a sign you're still operating inside a broken model of change. The old model says, think positive, take action, repeat daily. Set goals, grind harder, visualize, work until the universe delivers. And if it doesn't, work harder, stay up later, rewrite your affirmations. But here's the hidden flaw in all of it. It's built on the assumption that doing is more powerful than being, that you can act your way out of an old identity without ever truly transforming it. That's the lie. And that's why you're stuck. Because the universe doesn't respond to your actions. It responds to your energetic signature. And until that frequency shifts, all the action in the world can't override the timeline you're locked into. This isn't spiritual poetry. This is backed by science. In quantum physics, there's a phenomenon called the observer effect. Simply put, the act of observing a particle changes its behavior. Why? Because the observer's presence collapses an infinite field of potential into one outcome. Now flip that mirror around. You are the observer. And your internal state, your beliefs, your emotional energy, your subconscious identity, is what collapses the wave of reality into form. This means that life doesn't respond to your effort. It responds to the version of you who's observing it. Now, let's bring it down to earth. Let's say you're trying to manifest financial freedom. You repeat, I am abundant. Money flows to me. But under that affirmation lives a nervous system that tenses every time your rent is due. Under that mantra lives a memory of growing up without enough. And under that memory is a body that flinches at risk, fears instability, and distrusts wealth. Guess what? That's the signal you're actually broadcasting. That's the frequency the field reads. And no matter how hard you try to think differently, if your body and emotions haven't caught up, you're not in coherence. Coherence is the missing link. It's the harmony between thought, feeling, and identity. It's when what you believe matches how you feel, which matches who you're being. And until that alignment occurs, you're not shifting realities. You're reinforcing the same one. Think of it like this. You can't play a new song through an old radio station. The frequency determines the song. If you're still vibrating in guilt, shame, anxiety, or scarcity, those are the programs you're tuned into. And that's the reality you're going to experience over and over, no matter how badly you want something different. Now let's talk psychology. Your subconscious mind doesn't change through effort. It changes through emotional impact. That's why breakthroughs don't come during long to-do lists. They come in moments of intensity, vulnerability, surrender. Your subconscious doesn't understand language. It understands repetition and emotion. So when you feel poor, feel unwanted, feel unsafe, you're training your reality to give you more of that. Not because you deserve it, but because that's what your system recognizes as familiar. And here's where it gets even trickier. Your brain is addicted to the familiar. That's right. Your brain would rather feel familiar pain than unknown possibility. Because pain is predictable. Change isn't. So the moment you try to shift, your system panics. Your mind says, What if it doesn't work? Your body says, let's stay where it's safe. And without realizing it, you sabotage the shift before it ever has a chance to take root. This is why so many people fail with manifestation. They're not battling fate, they're battling familiarity. They're addicted to their old identity because it feels like home. Now pause. Take a breath. And really hear this. You haven't failed to manifest because you're weak. You've failed because you've been trying to do quantum work with linear tools. You've been trying to fix your life when what you really needed was to collapse into a new self entirely. And here's the truth most people miss. Real change isn't about stacking more habits, chasing more information, or fixing the past. Real change happens when you stop identifying with the version of you who needs fixing. When you stop seeing yourself as the struggler, the wounded, the one who's still trying, and you become the one who already is. But don't misunderstand this. Collapsing an identity doesn't mean pretending. It means choosing. It means stepping fully into the frequency of your desired reality before the evidence appears. That's what creates the shift. That's what bends timelines. That's when the field starts rearranging in your favor. And that's when your life finally begins to feel like it belongs to someone new. Because it does. Now that you understand why the old model of effort, action, and repetition fails, the next step is clear. It's time to learn what actually works. In Part 3, we introduce the concept of quantum jumping, not as a mystical escape, but as a precise, science-backed shift in identity, coherence, and frequency. You'll discover how to collapse timelines, not by doing more, but by becoming someone new entirely. And when you do, it's not just your thoughts that change. Reality does. Instantly. Imagine this. You're standing at a crossroads, and in every direction lies a different version of your life. In one, you're stuck, repeating the same patterns. In another, you're free, healthy, thriving, magnetic, abundant. Now, here's the shocker. Both realities already exist, right now, simultaneously. You're not waiting for them to be built. You're choosing which one to observe, embody, and enter. That's the essence of a quantum jump. Not a metaphor, not wishful thinking. A measurable neurological, emotional, and energetic shift into a parallel version of yourself. Let's break it down. Quantum physics tells us that everything in the universe exists as a wave of possibility until it is observed. A particle isn't a particle until consciousness interacts with it. The moment of observation collapses the wave into form. In the same way, your reality is not fixed. It is collapsed into shape by who you are being. This is not philosophy. It's physics. And it means this. You don't create your reality by doing more. You collapse a new reality into existence by becoming a new observer. That observer is not your surface thoughts. It's your frequency, your vibration, the deep, underlying signal your entire being emits. It's a composite of your beliefs, your emotions, your nervous system state, and your energetic alignment. And here's the core truth that changes everything. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you're coherent with. Wanting something and being coherent with it are not the same. You can desperately want a new job, a new body, a new love, but if your frequency is still coated in lack, guilt, insecurity, or fear, you're still locked into a version of reality where that desire exists only as a dream, not a timeline. So how do you become coherent? First, understand what coherence really is. In neuroscience, coherence is the synchronization of different systems into one unified signal. Your thoughts, emotions, and body aren't separate. When they're out of sync, you're in internal chaos, sending a scrambled signal to the quantum field. But when they're aligned, when your thoughts say, I am, your emotions feel, I already have, and your body walks like it's already true, you become a tuning fork for that reality. Your frequency sharpens, your signal strengthens, and reality bends to reflect it back. But this doesn't happen through effort. It happens through identity collapse. You can't bring the old self into the new reality. You must let it go. Collapse it. End the chapter, not by fighting it, but by choosing to no longer identify with it. The pain, the story, the trauma, the fear, all of it loses power the moment you stop claiming it as who you are. That's not avoidance. That's liberation. You're not bypassing the past. You're refusing to carry it forward. Here's a visual. Imagine your identity as a radio tower. Each version of you is broadcasting on a different station. The broke, doubtful, self-sabotaging version of you is on 89.3. The powerful, intuitive, abundant version of you, she's on 101.7. The frequencies exist at the same time, but you only hear the music of the station you're tuned into. A quantum shift is simply this: tuning your identity to a new frequency so you can receive a different stream of reality. And yes, it's instant. The moment you become coherent, the universe begins responding differently. You speak and people listen. You walk into a room and energy shifts. You take one action and it ripples tenfold. Why? Because you're no longer asking for permission to become. You are, and that energy is unmistakable. But here's the catch. This requires courage. Because to jump, you have to leave behind the version of you that feels safe in the struggle. You have to give up the familiar patterns, the comfortable excuses, even the attention you get from playing small. You have to let go of the identity that says, "I'm still healing," and step into the one that says, "I've already shifted." And yes, people will feel the change. Some may resist it, some may fall away. But the ones who remain, they'll mirror the new you. Because when you shift timelines, your relationships, opportunities, and environment shift with you. Let's bring this into your body. Close your eyes and imagine the version of you who already lives in your desired timeline. Not 6 months from now. Now. Feel their breath. Notice how they move, how they think, how they respond to challenge. What do they no longer tolerate? What do they now embody without apology? Let that feeling flood your system, not as fantasy, but as memory. Because here's the truth. If you can feel it, it already exists. And the more you feel it, the more real it becomes. And no, you don't need to wait until your circumstances change to feel this way. In fact, you must feel it before they do. That's the quantum mechanism. That's the reversal of the old model. Don't wait for proof to believe. Believe, and watch reality provide the proof. That's the shift. That's the leap. And it's available to you now. In Part 4, we're going from theory to practice. You're going to learn how to make the jump in real time, not over weeks or months, but within a single day. We'll walk through a precise 24-hour method to collapse your old identity, enter frequency coherence, and activate the field to begin reorganizing around the new you. You'll stop trying to change your life and start becoming the version of you who already has. The jump isn't far. It's one decision away. Get ready. Here's the truth most people aren't ready to hear. Quantum jumping doesn't take years. It doesn't require perfection, decades of healing, or the approval of your circumstances. What it demands is clarity, decision, and emotional boldness, all compressed into one sacred window of time. Now. Not someday. Not when you feel more confident. Not after one more course or coaching session. Now. And the best way to lock that in? Treat the next 24 hours like a portal. Because that's exactly what it is. A point of collapse where the old version of you ends and the new one begins. Everything starts with a decision. But not the kind of decision we make in passing. The kind we quietly hope will stick. No. This decision has to be sharp, final, embodied. You must decide with every cell of your being that the version of you who's been surviving, looping, doubting, and waiting is done, over, closed. That door is sealed. There's no more going back. You are no longer someone who's trying. You are now someone who already is. When you declare that, truly declare it, your frequency begins to shift in real time. But decision alone isn't enough. You have to break the loop. You must interrupt the gravitational pull of your old self, because make no mistake, that version of you will try to claw its way back into your nervous system. So do something bold. Do something that creates rupture, not for the sake of drama, but to signal to your mind, your body, and the field. We are no longer available for the familiar. Change your space. Speak a truth. Let something go you've been clinging to for too long. And don't just do it halfway. Do it with reverence, with intention, with the energy of rebirth. These moments become emotional imprints that override the programming of the past. Once you've ruptured the old rhythm, you have to step fully into the new frequency. That means embodying the identity of the version of you who already lives in the timeline you desire. Not just visualizing them, not just thinking about them, becoming them. Walk like they walk, talk like they talk, eat the food they would choose, stand the way they would stand, say no to what they would never tolerate, say yes to what they wouldn't hesitate to claim. Your body is your broadcasting tower. And when it begins to emit a new signal, the field around you has no choice but to rearrange. The changes won't always be grand or immediate. In fact, they often start subtly. A shift in energy when you enter a room. A conversation that suddenly opens a door you didn't expect. A person showing up who matches your new state of being. These are not coincidences. They're confirmations. The field is listening. The field is responding. You are no longer chasing transformation. You are living it. But here's where most people slip. They look for proof before they believe. And that's backward. In the quantum model, reality responds to belief, not the other way around. So start observing for alignment. Begin looking at the world through the lens of course it's working. Every small synchronicity, every inner shift, every sense of calm or sudden clarity, track it. Not from obsession, but from awareness. Because the more you observe coherence, the more you reinforce it, and the stronger your signal becomes. To maintain that signal, you need an anchor. A symbol, a gesture, a word, or a feeling. Something that reminds your body who it is now, not who it was. When doubt creeps in, when old patterns tempt you to shrink, come back to the anchor. Let it pull you into your new identity before fear can pull you out. You are building muscle memory for a new self. And like any muscle, the more it's activated, the more natural it becomes. Now let's get honest. There will be moments, perhaps even within these 24 hours, when the old timeline will try to reclaim you. A thought will arise, an emotion will spike, a habit will knock on the door. But remember this, you are not those sensations. You are the one choosing which version of yourself to embody. And the more often you choose the new, the more unfamiliar the old becomes. Until one day, it doesn't even feel like you anymore. There's no ceremony, no lightning bolt, just a quiet click when you realize, this is who I am now. And with that, the jump has already happened. So don't ask, is it working? Ask instead, am I being? Because when you are, without waiting, without negotiating, without shrinking, the field has no choice but to match you. And it will. Not because it's generous, but because it's exact. And when it does, life begins to organize itself around your frequency. People change, circumstances open, patterns dissolve. Not because you forced anything, but because you aligned. The world doesn't need to be convinced. It only needs to feel your coherence. This 24-hour window is not about perfection. It's about devotion. Not about proving anything, but becoming undeniable. You don't need to feel confident. You just need to feel clear. You don't need a long history of success. You just need to refuse to live one more day as someone you no longer are. You're not here to evolve slowly. You're here to leap. And the leap doesn't happen later. It happens the moment you remember who you were always meant to be. In Part 5, we make this even more real. You'll hear about people, just like you, who collapse their timelines through simple but powerful shifts. You'll see what happens when the field responds not to effort, but to identity. These aren't fairy tales. These are living proof. Get ready to see what's possible when you finally stop waiting and start collapsing the old story, for good. By now, the theory is clear. The model makes sense. You understand what quantum jumping is, how it works, and how to activate it. But your mind might still whisper the same question. Can this really work for me? And that's fair. Because even with the most compelling science and the most stirring motivation, there's one thing we all secretly crave: evidence. Something real, something human, something that shows us this isn't just possible, it's already happening. Let me tell you a story. A woman in her mid-30s, stuck in a cycle of toxic relationships, finally got tired of playing the role of the emotionally wounded one. She stopped going to therapy to talk about the same trauma, week after week, and instead took a weekend to be completely alone. She burned the letters. She deleted the contacts. She sat in silence and asked, "Who am I without this pain?" That question cracked something open. Within days, she began speaking differently. Her body moved differently. She felt space in her chest where tightness used to live. A month later, she met someone new, not because she was looking, but because she had stopped projecting the frequency of abandonment. Her new relationship wasn't a reward, it was a match. Or take the man who had been broke for years, not because he was lazy, but because he was trapped in a loop of lack. He would write affirmations, try side hustles, even work 2 jobs, but nothing truly shifted. One morning, after listening to a message much like this one, he walked outside barefoot at sunrise and screamed into the sky, not in anger, but in surrender. He said, "I am done being afraid of money. I am no longer the man who feels unworthy of wealth." That day, he applied for a job he once felt underqualified for. That week, he got it. 6 months later, he doubled his income. Not because he worked harder, but because he stopped identifying as the version of himself who just got by. These are not miracles. These are not anomalies. They are the natural results of identity collapse and frequency coherence. And if you listen closely, you'll notice something these people all did. They didn't wait for life to change before they shifted. They changed first, and life responded. What makes these jumps powerful isn't the size of the external results, but the speed and certainty of the internal shift. And often, the very first proof isn't money or love or career. It's peace. It's the moment you wake up and feel nothing chasing you. It's when someone pushes your buttons and you don't react, because those buttons don't belong to you anymore. It's when a problem shows up and you meet it with calm authority, not because it disappeared, but because you've grown beyond the frequency that created it. Still, even with these examples, part of your mind may resist. Maybe they're different. Maybe they were lucky. But what if the only difference is that they believed just long enough to jump? What if the real shift was simply this? They stopped waiting to feel ready, and instead chose to become someone new before life gave them permission. That's the point most people miss. You're not waiting for the right conditions. You're not waiting for the stars to align. You're not waiting for anything. You are the alignment, and the field is always listening. The more clearly you emit the signal of your new identity, the faster the world bends to mirror it back to you. That's not magic. That's resonance. And sometimes the results are wild. A woman wrote one word on her mirror, magnet, after hearing a message about frequency. That week, 3 opportunities came to her out of nowhere. A man changed the tone of his voice to sound like his future self, and within days, his colleagues treated him like a leader. A single mom who felt invisible for years changed her wardrobe, not for attention, but to match her future self. And strangers started complimenting her energy. None of these people waited to be picked. They chose, they jumped, and reality responded. What about you? What would happen if you stopped measuring your progress by results and started measuring it by identity? What if the goal isn't to get there, but to live from the knowing that you already are, because you are. The moment you decide, the moment you embody, the shift begins. And the longer you stay coherent with that identity, the more the field has no choice but to adapt. Still wondering if it's real? Then try this. Take 1 hour, just one, and live as if your jump has already happened. Not with fake positivity, not with denial, but with full body conviction. Walk the room like the future version of you. Breathe like them. Answer texts like them. Look in the mirror and see them. And don't break character, no matter what the outside world shows you. Because what you're practicing isn't pretending, it's alignment. And if you do this with sincerity, even for an hour, you will feel something shift. Not because you forced change, but because you became the cause of it. The stories are real, the science is clear, and the invitation is open. In Part 6, we bring it all together. We'll explore what happens after the jump, how to maintain the shift, recognize signs of regression, and re-anchor your new identity when life challenges you. Because this isn't just about one leap. It's about building a life where the quantum shift isn't a moment. It's a baseline. You've seen what's possible. Now let's make it permanent. So now, you've jumped. Maybe it wasn't dramatic. Maybe the world didn't explode into light. But something inside you cracked. You felt it. A shift. A flicker of clarity. A deep inner knowing that you've stepped into a new frequency. You're no longer just thinking about change. You're being it. But here's the next layer, the one most people don't talk about. How do you stay there? Because what truly matters is not just shifting once, but integrating that shift until it becomes your new default, your new identity baseline. This is where most people fall back. Not because the jump didn't work, but because they mistook the jump for the destination. But quantum jumping is not a one-time trick. It's a new way of relating to reality. You didn't step into a magic spell. You stepped into yourself. And now comes the real mastery. Not just collapsing the old identity, but refusing to return to it when life inevitably tests you. And it will test you. You'll get triggered. You'll have moments where the old version of you tries to speak again, through doubt, through fear, through familiar habits that feel comfortable, even when they don't serve you anymore. That's not failure. That's just frequency friction. The nervous system is recalibrating. You're not being pulled backward. You're being invited to reinforce the new timeline. And every time you choose coherence over reaction, every time you stay in alignment with your new self, even when the old world shows up, that's when the shift becomes permanent. So how do you do that? You do it by becoming radically aware of when you're drifting back. That awareness is everything. The moment you notice yourself speaking like the old you, worrying like the old you, doubting like the old you, you stop, you breathe, and you remember, that's not who I am anymore. Not with judgment, not with panic, just with presence. You bring yourself back, over and over, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're retraining the most powerful force in your life, identity. Your identity isn't fixed, it's programmable. And every thought you repeat, every emotion you indulge, every action you take, it's either solidifying the old code or reinforcing the new one. This is why coherence is a practice, not a performance, not a mask, a practice. Like returning to your breath in meditation, like returning to center when you've drifted into chaos. Each time you choose to realign, you're saying to the quantum field, I mean it. This isn't a phase. This is who I am now. But you're not meant to do this alone. The jump becomes easier to stabilize when you surround yourself with resonance. That means people, environments, content, and habits that reflect your new vibration, not your old one. Be intentional. Pay attention to what you consume, who you talk to, what you repeat to yourself. You're not just protecting your mindset, you're protecting your signal. And if something pulls you back into scarcity, fear, gossip, or self-doubt, It's okay to walk away, not because you're better, but because you're no longer compatible. Compatibility is everything in this new timeline. The version of you who lives here doesn't resonate with chaos, doesn't seek drama, doesn't need external validation. She or he or they are grounded in knowing, and that knowing becomes magnetic, not loud, not performative, just quiet power that moves through space like truth. You'll know you've integrated the shift when people around you start responding to your energy before you even speak. That's what happens when coherence becomes embodied. But integration isn't just emotional, it's practical. Start organizing your physical world to match your new identity. Clean your space, change your habits, speak your boundaries. Make decisions from the version of you who has already arrived, not the one who's still hoping. Every physical act of alignment sends a message to your subconscious. We're serious. This is real. And when your body believes it, your mind will follow. And then the field will too. And what if you slip? What if you forget? What if one day feels messy, small, out of sync? Beautiful. That's the moment you prove who you've become. Because anyone can feel powerful when it's easy. But it takes true alignment to return to your center when everything around you says you shouldn't. That's not weakness. That's mastery. That's when your new identity becomes unshakable. Not because it's never challenged, but because it no longer needs permission to exist. This is the real meaning of transformation. Not escaping your old life, not becoming someone else, but remembering who you were before the world told you to be small. The jump isn't to another person. The jump is back to your most expanded self. And the more you live from that space, the more reality begins to move in ways that feel almost supernatural. But they're not supernatural. They're just super aligned. And alignment always creates results. You'll start to notice patterns unravel. People will exit not by force, but by frequency mismatch. Opportunities will appear, not because you chase them, but because they're drawn to your coherence. And when that happens, don't act surprised. Say, "Of course." Because this is what happens when you stop trying to deserve it and start allowing it. The universe doesn't need to be convinced. It needs to be partnered with. So if you've made it here, if you've watched, listened, and felt something stir inside you, then you already know what's next. Not another theory, not another step. Just one final invitation. Stay here. Not just in this video, in this frequency, in this identity, in this timeline. Let it deepen, let it anchor. Let it become the new gravity that every part of your life begins to orbit around. And if the shift feels real, if you felt even a moment of resonance, clarity, or emotional truth, then don't keep it to yourself. Share what's moved you. Comment below. Who are you now? What timeline have you chosen? What part of the old you are you ready to release for good? Because the field responds to declaration. And this moment, right now, might be the most important one of all. The one where you say, "This is who I've decided to be, and I'm not going back." You've made the jump. You've seen what's possible, and now, the only thing left to do is live from it. If this message sparked something in you, subscribe, share it with someone who's ready, and comment the one word that defines your new identity. Because this is no longer about learning. It's about becoming.